Where are our destination?
Dr. Beresov, please come in. I'm not sure the signal is even getting through. We're almost to the docks. According to Dr. Beresov...
If you didn't cut what some of the previous dialogue mentioned between Catherine, their protagonist, and Dr. Beresov is, we need to recover something called the E-99 bomb. Again, not much originality. A device that Khrushchev wanted to use potentially during the Cold War, but apparently did not really went through with it, but it's still present at the bottom of the docks. So that's what we need to do. Get that and continue to reach the tower, in order to recharge it, potentially.
Of course. I'm sure it should just be smooth sailing from here.
I mean, okay, to be fair, we have dealt with a lot of goons back at the railway station. We dealt with the giant, enemy bug. Hopefully we should have a bit of, a bit of truce right now.
Okay, so I'm guessing Catherine betrays us, but we go back in time one more time and speak to the doctor, and he's the one who writes, "The girl cannot be trusted."
Again, you will see. If I had to say one thing that I give positive for the game, despite again the Russian intro and everything, pretty much all loose ends get tied up by the end. It helps that it's a relatively simple story compared to something that will be bigger in scope, only handling a limited range of characters, and sure, still being about a larger kind of scope for the entire world, but contained just enough so it doesn't get too overcomplicated. And it also helps that, again, like I mentioned, it's a time travel story where, despite bending the rules a bit, it manages to be more logical than a lot of time travel stories that instead loses themselves over their own rulings.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Or rather, suck in general, because they don't establish any rules like 13.2.
Well, 13.2 does establish rules. They're just all the wrong kind of rules.
If you change the future, you do change the past.
Yeah, that's technically a rule. Mind you, it's a terrible rule, but hey, there were rules, just rules that...
I am still baffled that either one of the two, either Toriyama or Watanabe, somehow one of them came up with this idea, and apparently everybody in the development team just went with it. Nobody thought it was a joke or anything. Like, that's really funny, Toriyama-san. Now, what's the actual rule?
The absolute
seriously,
state of square at that moment.
It sounds like a joke. Like, it really is. Like,
honestly, 13.2 as a whole seems to be just a cruel joke.
I would have reacted the same way that Teo reacted to Leander's voice actor in Rise Son of Rome, where he was trying to voice that Roman nobleman, and Teo even went like, "Okay, Pedro, tell me, where's the real voice acting? Because this can't be it."
Again, like you said, that guy sounded like a mixture of Michael Sheen and someone else. Feel you on your own, the joke.
And Lord knows, Rise Son of Rome is its own can of worms from top to bottom.
Borisov is wrong. Okay, these messages are getting weirder as time passes. Go on.
So Leander's voice actor should stick to his proper British accent over trying to do an Italian one.
I'm not to act like he could never do it, but man, look, Rise Son of Rome is one of those cases where there was clearly a lot of tomfoolery going on, to the point where I don't believe that was really anyone at their best.
Even in general, they didn't really try that. Again, maybe the thought process is in, if we try to have an accent, we might sound potentially too stereotypical, so let's not do that and just focus, instead of having, our British voice cast, focus on their natural languages. But again, it does lose something, admittedly. Mind you, it's not something that that didn't work all the time. Characters in some Assassin's Creed video games outright did not have an particular accent, and it still managed to make it work. Though it's kind of hand-waved in a sense that they mentioned, it's because of the animals kind of screwing things up potentially. So there have been good excuses in order to pull this thing off, but Rise of Rome is sketchy, unfortunately. Probably due to its own trouble development cycle.
Mm-hmm. And what a troubled development cycle it has.
Fuck's sake. Again, some of his plans decide to just sprout at the worst moment.
Chopper incoming. Watch yourself.
There you go.
Guess they just really want to grow up and say hello to you.
It's not that, because they literally function like tripwires. If you actually come in contact with them, they explode.
Lovely.
If I recall correctly, I do have an upgrade.
So, Tio, how much well do you think these guys would get along with Umbrella Corps at this point? Complete with the exploding plants.
Not sure, because Umbrella specializes only in bioorganical stuff most of the time, anyway. While, the E99 wants to have applications even on a mechanical base, in a sense of, manipulating matter in its inorganic state.
Wait, Tio,
So-
that's it. And someday Umbrella will develop the Z virus, which creates time-traveling zombies.
At this point, that wouldn't surprise me, because, again, thanks to their structure, 7 and 8 have managed to conveniently avoid, to a bit, at least a bit, the oh shit,
Oh, that ain't
time to
good.
get another trip to the past.
Right on time.
Pay no attention to the man who just teleported behind you, good comrade.
Honestly, it's kind of a wonder that we never...
I'm just gonna lie here in the corner and sob.
It's kind of a wonder that we never get transported right in front of anybody. At least anybody who's alive at the moment.
Who knows? Alright, surprise package.
I hope this doesn't mess with the time stream continuum.
It's fine. This is not that Simpsons episode where Homer keeps killing everything in the, in the dinosaur age. Again, apparently just killing a fly turns Ned Flanders into basically Big Brother. What do you know?
The butterfly effect is a bitch too.
Of course it is.
Yeah, and that bit where if you don't do well enough in the re-education, you get a frontal lobotomy.
But anyway, again, thanks to their particular story, Resident Evil 7 and 8, they had managed to avoid having to reference too much, at least, how the status quo is by the end of Resident Evil 6.
That's the
But
thing,
I have
if
to-
anything,
but,
Resident...
But I have to remind, there are still loose threads from that still haven't been explained. Like, again, Ada, for example. And she was supposed to show up in 8, but for some reason she didn't. Again, by the time we're recording this, we don't know what the DLCs of Resident Evil 8 will be. Who knows? Maybe she shows up in there.
Here's a better question. What the hell has Jill been doing ever since Resident Evil 5?
Java, I'll up you on that one. What happened to Billy after 0? The guy just disappears in the woods and never shows up again.
I guess at least with
Did we ever see
Bill...
Rebecca ever again?
Yes, in Resident
yes,
Evil Vendetta.
Yeah, the CGI movies showcase, but now she has basically a desk job, essentially.
Well,
Oh,
she
what a
did...
downgrade.
Well, she did have a desk job as, like, a scientist at a medical facility until, well, shenanigans happened. A virus was released, this time the A virus. And, well, she's, I guess she's pretty much back into it. Hell, she literally gets back into her old, Stars gear for that movie as well.
Also, thanks for waiting me, soldiers. I was just busy upgrading a bit.
Okay.
I like that one fake rumor surrounding Resident Evil 8's DLC. It was going to be called Jack and Jill. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Okay. I guess it would have fitted with the fairy tale approach that the game had at the beginning, potentially, but.
But yeah, at least when it comes to Billy, I guess we can infer he's one of the few Resident Evil protagonists who just gets to have a good end, especially since, as far as,
I guess.
I mean, as far as things go, if the public finds him, he'll be considered a criminal for all that stuff, so yeah, you know, faked is death and all that, fair enough. But seriously though, Jill, like, she was active last we saw her, but they just didn't use her. And it was especially jarring in Resident Evil 6 where, okay, you think Chris's partner would be Jill. No, it's Pierce. And don't get me wrong, Pierce is fine. But where the hell was Jill in Resident Evil 6?
What about Shiva?
Okay, yeah. Sheva's also a weird omission too, because you know what? She was a popular, well-liked character, and her division is pretty much dead.
She was so well
yes.
liked that
Well,
She
yeah.
was so well liked that the Mega Man comics made a character based off her.
Because I always heard people didn't like her for the sole fact that the character kept getting in your way whenever you were trying to move about.
That's on a gameplay statement. On a narrative-wise, instead, she's actually very fine.
Pretty much, yeah. And honestly, even gameplay-wise, that's like a thing for some people.
Later versions of the game anyway refined a bit, yeah. Oh, fantastic.
And we're just back.
Oh.
What
That
was even the...
literally Paddy to get us to this place, basically.
Wow, that was bad.
Okay, not necessarily padding, but to be fair, we did progress it physically because otherwise the floor would have collapsed. I get what they were going for, but the way it's presented does make it a bit look like padding, admittedly.
Not even like this. Every other time we've gone into the past, we've at least learned something substantial or done something substantial. This was literally us going from one end of a hall to another.
Alright.
You know,
what you need to do... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, you go first.
What you need to do here, very quickly, is to actually restore the power to the amplification platform. There you go, by going under it and replace one of the cylinders. After that, you can use that amplificator to actually literally pull out of the ocean a sunk ship that contains the E99 bomb. Go on, Wibs.
You know, it's interesting, really. It's fascinating looking back on last games from developers, and judging from from these last games, you can see the reason they went out of business, whether it be external or internal. In this case, external being Activision, and internal being these guys are kind of out of creative ideas at this point.
When it comes with this game, I'm definitely going to stick in more on external stuff, because this part aside, and to be fair, for all we know, this might have had to do with Activision rushing them. Like, most of the game seems to suggest that they did have a good idea for how to handle stuff. And as for what we actually do know, we do know for certain that Activision did force their hand in forcing them to rush parts, which would pretty much explain a lot of the shortcomings. Now, I'm not going to act like there weren't any internal issues. Like, let's be honest. It is obvious that they are cribbing off of BioShock. Mind you, not in a tasteless way, but still, there'd be cribbing all the same. But, you know, overall, it seems like they did have good ideas here. It's just the shame that maybe they didn't think the best under the pressure. Though, I really do have to wonder, was there even a good reason for Activision to have rushed them? Like, sometimes I get it when a big executive does need to say, okay, game's taking too long, we legit need to get this out.
It was basically that, Jova. Remember, it was potentially even cancelled at some point because they actually ran into the problems of not managing to optimize it enough for the ideas that they had.
Because, I mean, you do have to work...
Alright, similar to Quantum Break, kinda, we reconstruct an entire ship.
Because you do have to, because with games, I mean, you do still have to work to a budget. If you start going over that, that can start having a detrimental effect on other things in the wider company.
Not
Like,
just webs.
like that happened with, I believe that was Konami's side of the story in regards to MGS5.
Not just that webs. Developers also again, developers also have to remember that they're supposed to deliver the game on a reasonable schedule and can't just staying around twiddling their thumbs, you know, because otherwise it just becomes a problem where, okay, you guys are incredibly inefficient at your work. And that becomes also a unique problem. Like, just because crunch is terrible, that doesn't mean the exact opposite extreme is the solution. You know, you still have, the developers should still be mindful to develop their games and make efficient use of their time. You know, because they're, like, let's say for example, an art director who can't make up his mind on what kind of visual style the game should go for. The time that he's spending deciding, he's holding the entire development team back because they can't progress because, well, you know, the model designers can't go ahead and make the models because they have to wait for him to tell how the models are supposed to look like.
This actually goes back to a common thing that I have said before, like, and mind you, I'm not giving Activision the benefit of a doubt in most cases, but one thing people do tend to forget is that there is a reason that we do need to have a business side to these things. While yes, in an ideal world, stuff would be fueled by the creator more so than just the guy in the suit here. However, sometimes it takes the business executive to point out that, hey, just because the creator wants to do a certain thing, that might very well piss off, you know, the consumers or whatnot here and there. Like, sometimes it does take the man in the suit to say, look, I know you really want to do this and everything, but this is legit going to hurt our sales figures in ticking off the fans. And mind you, even if we were to argue that maybe it's just something the creator really wants to do, sometimes what the creator wants to do is not always the best for something. Like, there's...
Or feasible.
You sunk it, all those people dead. Anyway, to mention quickly, stuff that was mentioned via the audio's comms. Unfortunately, for this particular effect, the ship is still relatively unstable and it's gonna deteriorate back very quickly. So it's basically a smash and grab kind of operation. Get in, get the E99 bomb, and get back. Unfortunately, again, despite the miracles of the TND, this is too much of a big object to handle.
I can even mention another Activision example of a game getting screwed over by both internal and external factors. 007 Legends. Eurocom did have a pretty tight schedule. They had to release the film in time for Skyfall in 2012. There were a lot of things going against them, but some of their design decisions were legit poor.
Let me give. Sorry, are you done, Lips?
Well, I mean, there was that pretty poor stealth mechanic. There was the levels just being overly long and relying too much on shooting, even by shooter standards. The story, if you can even call it that, being really just kind of poor renditions of scenes from the movies that they were adapting, and that includes Die Another Day. And also some pretty poor presentation values, like the voice acting. I mean, put it this way, but all the Activision 007 developed games managed to get Daniel Craig to do his voice for the character. Granted, he's not the best voice actor in the world, but he did lend in somewhat authenticity. In 007 Legends, he couldn't be bothered, or whatever, or he couldn't be paid enough. I don't know what the reason was. So they got Bronev's voice actor to do an imitation of him, and that's the worst of that's the worst example of sound alikes I can think of. You like him, and the acting job was pretty poor.
See, let me. See, I'll use this example since Jova likes to bring this one up too. Let's talk about Rare's Everwild, where if even after a year, the announcement, the company's the developer is still saying we're still figuring out what we want this game to be. Like if I was Phil Spencer on that situation, I would immediately go over there and say, guys, not for nothing, but we have a game to release over here, so stop twiddling your thumbs and just make up your goddamn minds.
Mac, let me check and see if there have been any developments on Everwild.
To be fair, Jova, by the time we're recording these, we're not too far away from the June conference that Macro is supposed to have. Maybe we'll mention more on that.
I'm sure they will, too. It's just that the fact that they're even saying that a year on...
No, I was just mentioning...
Anyway, there has been an update on the situation. Sea of Thieves devs, Everwild is a real mess, reportedly. Let me post it here. Yeah, apparently development is a mess. It's looking basically certain that Everwild, the next game from Sea of Thieves developer Rare, has suffered from a troubled development, no duh, since it was announced way back in 2019. Jesus! 3 years, and we do not...
Hey, Phil. Sorry, go on.
3 years, and we do not have a proper thing. Mind you, this article was posted back in December 2021, and as far as I can see, there's been no other updates on it. So the last we've heard from the devs, Everwild.
Rare's new game.
Right, I completely forgot about that.
Exactly, you and everybody else. But Phil, maybe this is your sign that maybe Matt Booty, aka for those who don't know, Matt Booty is the head of Xbox Game Studios, the head of the first party studios. I guess maybe Matt is not really the right person for this job, Phil, because not for nothing, but ever since you had him take over, first party production has slowed down to a fucking crawl.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where there are no major Xbox game releases this year.
Oh, you think it's bad? Listen to what the report in this article had to say. A report in January 2021 suggested that Everwild has been completely rebooted from scratch, as well as lacking clear direction for the title. Jeff Grubb of GamesBeat was one of the journalists backing that report, and now in the latest Xbox Era podcast, he says, and I quote, that Everwild is a real mess, and that the people working on that game don't really know what's going on with it. That's how much of a mess it is right now. They've rebooted that thing, and they don't know exactly what the state of it really is in terms of, like, what they expected to be. They're still figuring that out, and it's a mess, and it's to the point where it could have been... Mind you, that game was supposed to be an Xbox One title. It's now to the point where it could have been potentially a launch title for the Xbox Series X.
Okay. I know that a lot of people are not gonna like hearing this somewhere there on the internet, but here's the thing, okay? Sometimes when you're, and trust me, because I know, because I have my own business, but sometimes when you're in a position of leadership, you have to have the balls to fire someone if that person is flat out being inefficient or outright incompetent at their job. Because, like it or not, this is how the world works. If you suck at your job, if you do a terrible job, you get fired. That's how things work. Don't like it? Too bad.
Oh, it gets even better. Hey, guess what? I found a new article. It gets even better. One of their designers has literally decided to leave the company during the development of this game.
Hold on. Did you want to say something about this too? Sorry.
No, go on.
Okay. No, go on.
Oh, you sure you don't want to read that?
Is it really that? It isn't even all that important.
Go on.
Is there okay, before I go on to you, is there anything important gameplay-wise that...
I'll be sure to mention it when it happens.
Alright, so I found this other article for May 2022, which does say everything we know so far. Apparently, one of their directors... in fact, no, Everwild's literal creative director, Simon Woodruff, left the company late 2020. So, the creative director has left the game. Wow, it's in the works here.
Can we just agree that Xbox Game Studios management is a fucking disaster?
Well,
because how many times have we heard? Like, remember, this is something with initiative. like people leaving in mass in initiatives as well. Like seriously, what
Okay.
the fuck is going on over
I also
there?
know that as of right now, Microsoft has been trying to get rid of a lot of toxic people in their workforce. I wonder why. Certainly has nothing to do with a major buyout that has controversy surrounding it.
I will say this. To be fair about that, I do wonder how much of this is Rare's own issue, because Rare have become a hot mess themselves. Though I will say
sure.
this, I don't think Microsoft have been helping the matter at all.
No, but that's what I was. But that's the reason why I was saying that. Then to address what Dubs was also saying with the See, that's the thing. There's a lot. Whenever I say these things that I was just saying just now, a lot of people will immediately get angry at me and go, "Oh God, Doc, you're so mean, you're so whatever." But why would you want people to lose their jobs? Look, this is the world of adult employment. Okay, you don't get a pat on the back like you do in kindergarten. If you do a bad job, you get fired. That's how things work. Because guess what? You have to earn your keep.
Honestly, I'm just amazed that they were actually this transparent with Everwild. Like, very rarely does a company literally admit, yeah, we know about just about much of this game as you do, and we're the creators.
It's not even just because of that. It's because, like I said, if you do a bad job when you're working in a company, you're not just holding yourself. It's not a problem for yourself. You're holding the entire company back. Because if a company depends on you doing your good job, you're also screwing up other people's work.
Now, mind you,
So
maybe this game will somehow end up being fantastic, and we'll all eat crow for this. But at least I can take solace in knowing that we are not alone in having doubts about this game. Everwild is practically a punchline at this point. Like, at first it was like, oh, when this game exists, that'll be the day. But this is about the devs, as far as we know, not even knowing what their own game is supposed to be. Like, why did this even get a space at E3 that day? In 2019!
Just to show they're working on something. That's it.
Yeah, because people kept bemoaning that Rare was just doing stuff like Sea of Thieves.
Okay, look. I get that people may be like that. That does not mean that that does not mean that Rare are obligated to show something if they don't have anything to show for it, only to literally admit that they have nothing to show for it. Like, you're not proving people wrong in that regard. If anything, you're proving their point even more.
the problem is that, like I said, if Rare's current staff is being incompetent and they can't progress forward and can't develop a game to save their lives, then intervene. Do something about it. Don't
Why?
Based on what we know, from how they handle things, it seems like they just allow developers to just sit there and twirl their thumbs and have a very hands-off approach. Which, again, that can be okay to an extent. The problem is that when it gets to a point where the studios are flat out progressing bupkis, it becomes a problem. You have go on.
Like, considering all that stuff started at the tail end of 2020, were Microsoft just afraid that if they started firing people during the pandemic, they'd be seen as the bad guys for firing people during a pandemic?
Probably.
But I mean,
Okay.
if that's the case, I hope that's not the case, because even during a pandemic, if you're shit at your job, that could be even worse.
Okay. We'll give them credit that during the year 2020, that's when the world was falling apart. A lot of games suffered for it then. But the fact that there was no real big developments in all of 2021 for it is...
That's not what Liz was mentioning, though.
No.
Now, what I mean is, what I mean is, I have no proof of this. I'm just spitballing, but I mean. Because remember when WWE got shat on for dropping all those wrestlers during a pandemic? I wonder if companies like Microsoft were afraid that they get bad PR for doing the same thing themselves.
That's why haven't... Okay, if that was their fear, then why haven't they let them go years later, though? Like, it has been 2 years since the pandemic and the lockdown first began in 2020.
not even just that. Like, it's one of those cases where, again, like, people should also remember. Okay, it's one of those. Okay, Dweeb's question: was there a natural, proper reason to let go of those wrestlers, or was it just like to cut costs?
Cost cutting. I mean, there were reasons for
Okay.
it because they couldn't
Okay.
tour anywhere because they were stuck in the performance center for months.
Okay, that is actually a reason, a good enough reason for people to be angry at them. You know, but
Unfortunately, as they fired people the day after or the week of, they announced that they had record high profits. So it just makes them look worse as a result.
here, let's go with this example. Dweebs, imagine you come over here to my place, right? You ask for a salad, right? I tell you, 20 minutes later, I come back to you. Okay, the cook is still finishing because he's trying something. Can you wait 20 more minutes? And you'll be what? And you'll be like, okay, it's been whatever.
I just leave.
Yeah, exactly. You know why? Because Dweebs has better things to do than sit around twiddling his thumbs waiting for his food to arrive. Okay? You know,
I'll just say this. For Rare fans, I really do feel sorry for Rare fans who were desperately awaiting it. Now, granted, I hear CFEs did get better, but still, if you were looking forward to Everwild back in 2019, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Sure.
say something
Let me
that
just-
this is before you go. I just want to say this: Microsoft probably doesn't care because their whole thing is they want to sell Game Pass. So it's like that. Just make a game good for Game Pass, and we have no complaints.
Well, gee, that would work if there was actually a game, but Everwild is not
And
there
that's and again, it's exacerbated by because of all the delays and stuff going on. 2022 so far, as far as I know, we've barely had any major game releases.
Captain Renko, thank heavens you're all right. Here.
Oh, what
let me
the?
help you.
Nah.
You did it. You got the E99 bomb. We still have hope.
And we blacked out.
Yeah. Also for reference, because were talking over it during the gameplay, Catherine actually tried to went to rescue, but we don't know what happened to her. So we'll have to actually figure it out, among other things, in the next part. Yeah.
She left but tried but couldn't rescue us. That's not suspicious at all.